In the past, I've looked at several 130 size frames, and this is my latest 130. This is a Owl clone, I think is what it's called, and this is pretty cool. The only bad thing about it is it has these big protectors out here, which makes it a little heavy for racing, but it basically flies like a pizza box. And I got a video coming about this here shortly as soon as I get some last minute tunings done on this and get it put together. Anyway, today we're taking a look at another 130 frame. This is a JJ Pro P130 Badler frame. Now this comes as a ready to fly kit as well, but it's also available with the frame by itself. And it comes in a box like this. Nothing fancy about the box. But the one cool thing about this is the props are actually colored with different colors of camouflage on the props. It comes with three forward and 3 reverse props. So you got, four of each one. So you have an extra set of props to go with it. And this is the piece of foam that goes on the bottom to help give it a little bit of protection on the bottom, and some landing gear to go under the arms. And then of course the frame itself. And I got the green camouflage one. It's also available in a tan and a blue color. Let me get this opened up and we'll take a little closer look at it. There's not much to this frame. It just has the main plate, the upper plate, spacers, screws, and a few different camera mount options. And this frame, if you look at it, it's kind of grooved here for the screws so that they can go through and sit flush, so that way your landing gear will mount flush on here and not have the screws in the way when it's landing. Also, you can see here it looks like it has the same holes for a standard flight board, like a CC3D or a NAIS 32 or an F3 racing board. And then it has the holes here so you can run your battery wires down underneath if you wanted to, I guess, or have wires so you can go down and put LEDs on the bottom of this so that you can see it when you are flying. Anyway, let me get this put together and we'll take some measurements off of it. So here's the frame fully assembled, and this top plate being camouflage look like this makes it look pretty cool. Now these edges are not real smooth. They're a little bit rough. They could have been sanded down a little bit better, but I've seen much worse than this. Even these are pretty good. I mean, they're a little bit rough, but not bad. I think they actually took some time and actually did some of their own sanding. I don't see any dust on my hands, so not too bad. On here, it comes with a there we go. There's a little small spacer goes right there, and then there's a bigger spacer sits up here on top of it. And so you put your flight board down there, or your power distribution board down below, and your flight board would go up here on top, and it's just held, and it comes with these spacers, so you don't have to try to come up with those on your own. Also, it has this antenna hole back here, which you would think would be for a video transmitter antenna, which it could be if you're using a video transmitter and you'd have a little window here to see what your signal's on. But what it's really designed for is a camera like this. Now this is an EF01 like that, and this is only 25 milliwatts, but if you're going to take this out and fly it around far distances, then you might be better off getting a 200. Now this should be able to slide in here like this. Now the nice thing about this is that the camera and the video transmitter are all in one, so you don't have to have a video transmitter back here or a separate one. Now like I said, you'd probably be better off if you're going to fly long distances with a 200 milliwatt, but this just sits in here like this, and you have to use the included mounting kit like this, and the 2 screws would go through up here on the top that would mount into the plate that's included with this, and then you'd find the one that's appropriately sized to go around the camera, and then that's what would help hold it in place. So the nice thing about using the video transmitter and camera all in one is that you have all this extra space now, for your other components like your transmitter, or your receiver for your transmitter, and for your power distribution board and your ESCs out on the arms. But you just have a lot of room because the video transmitter and camera are all in one, and also it can run off a wide voltage of power too, so you can probably hook it up directly to your power distribution board, but you'd want to check and make sure that your camera supports it first. And I'll put a link to this camera and the one that does 200 milliwatts also, because like I said, I think the 200 milliwatt one might be a little better depending on how you're flying or where you're flying. So the motor mounts here in the arms are actually cut for 1306 motors. Now this is an 1806 motor, so it's a little bit bigger than one you'd want to use. But you can see here, these 2 holes here are close together, and the ones that go this way are a little bit further apart. So the closer ones would actually fit into these holes, but you're going to have, you're only going to have two screws fit in there because the other 2 won't fit. And this motor is actually ginormous for this quadcopter. I do have another quad with 1306 motors on it, and this is another one I've had for a while. And the motor's the 1306 motors would look really good on here, and spinning 3-inch props would be no problem for 1306 motors. Now let's go ahead and get some measurements off this frame because I'm kind of interested to see how thick these are. The bottom plate is almost 3 millimeters. The top plate looks like 1.5. Yep, 1.5. And in between here, the spacers themselves and the space in between is about, let me get it straight, about 30 millimeters. So if you want to get knurled spacers or whatever, you can do that instead. Also down here on the bottom, these the whole spacing here is about 31 millimeters. So this is using more standard size flight boards. Now they are starting to come out with some 20 by 20 millimeter flight boards, and those things are going to be slick, especially in these smaller quads, just because they take up a little less room. But let me get the scale turned on and we'll get some weights off this. So here's the frame, and it comes in about 50 grams. So 50 grams isn't too heavy for a 130 size frame. My Owl clone one was almost like 86 grams. It was way too heavy, but it still flies fun. It flies like a pizza box. But anyway, 50 grams should be pretty nice for this. Also included with this quadcopter kit, it has these little screws that are the kind that are designed to sit flush. I'm not there, you can kind of see it. It's designed to sit flush, and all these holes in the arms are designed for these particular screws. So when they slide in, they should be able to sit flush with the bottom of the frame. That way your landing gear can sit on there easily and help hold it in place. And you can see there's a few threads that come through the other side, and connecting on the 1306 motors, that should be enough, especially if you're using blue Loctite and 1306 motors. So here's the 3045 prop that's included with it, and if we hold it up here over top of this hole, you can see it's barely clearing through this area. So essentially, if you keep everything up inside of this edge of this frame, you should be okay, because it's just running right along that edge. So up here in the front, it's kind of the same thing. If it's barely clearing inside this very clear in the spacer, so you don't have any room where anything can stick out of there. It's not coming very close to the flight board. Let me get it centered there. There it is. You can see it's not getting too close to the flight board, so it should be okay. Even from this angle, there we go. That's about centered. There's not a whole lot of room through there, but it should be raised up a little bit. So just make sure when you're doing your wiring, you keep it all nice and tight inside there. This is advertised as a P130, so you'd assume that it's 130 millimeters, and it looks like it's just a little bit shorter than 130, maybe like 129 or 28 millimeters. So here are 3 smaller size frames. This is an ET150 and a MM130-O, and I can only assume the O stands for owl. But these quadcopters here should actually be really close to the same size. And if I compare this horizontally or diagonally between this motor and this motor, you can actually see they are indeed both 130s. Now this one's a 150, so it should be a little bit bigger. And if I line up the motors there, you can kind of see how that one's, quite a bit longer. But this one does not fly very well because of all the mass that it has, but it flies real well for indoors, and man, you don't hardly have a chance of hurting anything with the props because they're all enclosed. This one should fly a lot better because of its lighter weight and not having all the extra mass around it to weigh it down. Now this one is, like I said, is also kind of nice because they built it as narrow as I think they could for a 30 millimeter flight board. Now if you look at this from above, you can tell the upper plate is a little bit wider than the lower plate, but that's probably just to help give it a little bit more strength in the lower plate as well. And it also has the battery strap built in here, so they would expect, I would assume, that you're going to run your battery on the bottom, or you can run up here on the top just as easily because there's nothing up here restricting you from doing that. So this is the JJ Pro P130 quadcopter frame. I think if you're looking at 130 frames, I think this would be a real winner just because of the simplicity of the motor, the board mounting here, the camera mounting with the camera kit, and having lots of room out here on these arms for ESCs and 1306 motors. And also, if you come up with something else, you can put it back here on the back, or if your battery gets on here, you have a little bit more room. Maybe if you have to slide it back, which I'd really recommend it be centered, but if you had to, you have a little bit more room back there. And also you have room back here for your receiver as well for your transmitter. Anyway, JJ Pro 130. If you have any questions about this, leave them in the comments. I will try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.